are the pair of earrings that we'll be making today, and the earrings are made from a component that I designed. In this component, I've used the Zolina jewel beads, both the left and the right bead. I have the 2-hole 6mm pyramid beads. I have the 2x3mm Potomac crystal rondelles, and I have some 15-0 seed beads. This component is approximately 1 inch in diameter, and for the earrings it's very lightweight. It's not heavy at all. Now in this design, the pyramid beads do not lay flat. They sit at an angle in the center of the design, and this it gives a really unique look to the design and when it's combined with the Zolina jewel beads. For this pair of earrings right here, for the pyramid beads and the Zolina jewel beads, I use the Jet AB color. For the 2x3mm Potomac crystal rondelles, I have the metallic bronze. And for the 15-0 seed beads, I use the Miyuki Duracoat galvanized medium gold. For our project today, the colors that I'm going to be using are for the Zolina jewels, I'll be using the white Lila Vega luster for both the left and the right. For our pyramid beads, I'm going to be using the alabaster Lila Vega luster. For our 2x3mm Potomac crystal rondelles, I have the metallic transparent purple. And again, for the 15-0 seed beads, I'm going to be using the same color that I used in the pair right here, and that's the Miyuki Duracoat galvanized medium gold. Now for our earrings, we'll also need to have some earring findings, and I have an ear wire, so we'll need 2 ear wires to attach to our earrings. I will be using a size 12 beading needle, and I will be using the Wildfire .006 beading thread in the green color. For the tools that we'll need for our project are, we'll need something to cut down our thread, and I will be using my thread zap to cut down and burn my thread. And we're also going to need either flat nose pliers or round nose pliers to attach our ear wire. So let's gather all our materials together and get it laid out on our bead mat, and we'll get started on this project. So I got all my materials laid out on my bead mat. I have my size 12 beading needle, and I threaded it with about 2.5 feet of my Wildfire beading thread. My pyramid beads are laid out on my mat, and there's 2 holes to these pyramid beads, and right now I have them laid out so that the holes are running horizontally from left to right. There's going to be a hole at the bottom here, and there's a hole at the top. I will be picking up the beads by going through the hole at the top. So to start out, we want to pick up one of our pyramid beads going through the hole at the top. We'll pick up one 15-0 seed bead, and we're going to repeat that 3 more times. So we'll pick up our pyramid bead, a 15-0. We'll pick up our 2-hole pyramid bead, a 15-0 seed bead, and one more time the pyramid bead and a 15-0 seed bead, and let those all drop down. So we should have 4 pyramid beads and 4 15-0 seed beads. We're now going to form a circle by going through all these beads again, and we want to leave approximately like a 4-inch tail or so. So sew through all those beads again. And pull tight. Now let's tie a couple of knots. And I'm going to end my tail thread. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to sew through this next pyramid bead, just the pyramid bead. And then we're going to step up and sew through the second hole of that same pyramid bead that our thread is now exiting. So we want to pick up our Zoli dual beads next. And the way we're going to pick them up is we're going to pick up a right bead, and then we're going to pick up a left bead. And the way we pick up the beads, they're going to form this V shape. We're going to pick them up by going through what I'm calling the bottom hole, and that's going to be located, that's the hole that's located at the thinner edge of the Zoli dual. So the Zoli dual has this thicker or puffier top piece, and then it thins out as it goes down the bead. So I'm going to be picking up the beads by going through that thinner or the bottom hole. So I want to pick up my right Zoli dual, and then I'll pick up my left Zoli dual. And then we'll sew through the second hole of the next pyramid bead. Again, we're going to pick up our right Zoli dual by going through the bottom hole, and then we'll pick up our left Zoli dual and sew through the second hole of the next pyramid bead. Pick up your right Zoli dual and then your left Zoli dual and go through the second hole of the next pyramid bead. We'll pick up our right Zoli dual and then our left Zoli dual and go through the second hole of the next pyramid bead. So what we want to do, this is what we have right now, and what we want to do is we want to go through all those beads again to reinforce. I'm going to pull tight. So as we come through the last set of Zoli duals, we're going to go through the next pyramid bead as well. So here we want to sew through one more Zoli dual bead so that our thread is exiting in between these two Zoli dual beads. I'm going to try to tuck that out the way, and then okay, we're going to pick up 3 15-0 seed beads, and we're going to step up and go through the second hole of the same Zoli dual bead our thread is now exiting. And I'm just going to burn down this tail thread just a little bit more because it's sticking out and it's bothering me. There we go. We're going to pick up a 15-0, a 2 by 3 millimeter rondelle, and another 15-0. And we're going to go through the second hole of the next Zoli dual bead that's right here. So we're skipping over this pyramid bead and going through the second hole of the next Zoli dual bead. Pick up 3 15-0 C beads, and we're going to sew through the bottom hole of the same Zoli dual bead our thread is now exiting. We'll sew through that bottom hole of that Zoli dual and then the next pyramid bead. We want to sew through these next 2 Zoli dual beads by going through the bottom hole. Sew through that next pyramid bead, and then sew through 1 more Zoli dual bead. So now our thread is exiting in between these 2 Zoli dual beads. We want to pick up 3 15-0 C beads, I'm going to sew through the top hole of the same Zoli dual bead our thread is now exiting. Pick up a 15-0, a 2 by 3 millimeter rondelle, and a 15-0, and we want to sew through the second hole of the next Zoli dual bead. Now here we already have 15-0s that are sitting in between our 2 Zoli dual beads. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, and I'm going to sew down through the bottom 15-0 that's sitting in between these 2 Zoli dual beads. So just the bottom 15-0. We're going to sew through the bottom hole of the last Zoli dual bead we came through, and go through the pyramid bead sitting right next to it. Sew through the bottom hole of these 2 Zoli duals. Sew through the next pyramid bead. And sew through 1 more Zoli dual bead, the bottom hole. And here we want to pick up 3 more 15-0 C beads. We're going to sew through the top hole of the same Zoli dual bead we're exiting. Pick up a 15-0, a 2 by 3 millimeter rondelle, and another 15-0. We're going to sew through this next Zoli dual bead, the top hole. We'll pick up 2 15-0 C beads. We'll sew down through this 15-0 that's at the bottom in between these 2 Zoli duals. So just sew through that bottom 15-0. Sew through the bottom hole of the last Zoli dual bead we went through, and sew through the next pyramid bead. We'll sew through these 2 Zoli dual beads. And we'll sew through the next pyramid bead. Go through the bottom hole of the next Zoli dual. Here we already have 3 15-0 seed beads sitting in between these 2 Zoli duals. We're going to sew up through the bottom 15-0 only, so just through the bottom 15-0. We'll pick up 2 15-0 seed beads, and we're going to sew through the top hole of the 15 of the sorry. We're going to sew through the top hole of the Zoli Dual that we were last exiting. Pick up a 15-0, a 2x3 millimeter rondelle, and the 15-0. And we're going to sew through this next Zoli Dual bead, the top hole. We're going to pick up two 15-0 seed beads. And we're going to come down through the bottom 15-0 that's sitting in between these two Zoli Duals. So just that bottom 15-0 seed bead. And this is what you'll have at this point. It's starting to look like almost like a flower blossom. We're going to sew back through the bottom hole of the Zoli Dual that we last went through, and then that sew through that pyramid bead. Sew through this next Zoli Dual bead. We want to come up the 3 seed beads that are sitting on the side of this Zoli Dual bead that we're now exiting. So we'll go through that bottom 15-0. And we'll come through the 2 on the side of that Zoli Dual. We're going to sew through this Zoli Dual. And we're going to go through the 15-0, the rondelle, and the 15-0 that follows it. Let's sew through this next Zoli Dual. And we're going to sew through the 15-0 that's right after the Zoli Dual sitting at the top. We'll pick up 5 15-0 seed beads, and this will form our loop for our ear wire. So I have 5 15-0 seed beads. And I'm going to hop over by this Zoli Dual right here. So there's a 15-0 sitting right next to it at the top. We're going to go through that 15-0 and then through the Zoli Dual. And that should form a little loop at the top. So through this next 15-0, the rondelle and the 15-0. Go through the next Zoli Dual bead. And the 15-0 that's sitting right next to it at the top. Pick up 3 15-0 seed beads. And we're going to sew through the 15-0 that's at the top, sitting right next to the next Zoli Dual. So we're skipping over the 15-0s in the middle and going through this 15-0 right here. We'll go through the Zoli Dual bead as well. Sew through the 15-0, the 2x3 millimeter rondelle, and the next 15-0. Sew through the next Zoli Dual bead and the 15-0 at the top following it. Pick up 3 15-0 seed beads. Sew through this 15-0 right next to the Zoli Dual at the top, and then sew through your Zoli Dual bead. Go through the 15-0, the 2x3 millimeter rondelle and the 15-0. Sew through the next Zoli duo and the 15-0 following it at the top. We'll pick up our 3 15-0 seed beads. And we'll sew through the 15-0 right before the next Zoli duo. And then we'll sew through the Zoli duo as well. And this is what you'll have. I'm going to sew through this 15-0. The 2x3 millimeter rondelle and the 15-0 following it. I'm going to go through the next Zoli duo. Now I'm going to reinforce the CB loop that I created here. If you desire to use a wire protector instead of a CB loop, you can do that. So go up through. So go up through those 5 seed beads again. We're going to come down and go through the 15-0 on this side and the Zoli duo as well. And I actually went through the 15-0 following the Zoli duo. Go through the crystal and the Zoli duo after it. I'm sorry, the crystal and the 15-0 after it. And then we're going to go through the Zoli duo. So now I want to end my thread. I'm going to come down through the 3 15-0 seed beads that are sitting alongside this Zoli duo. So go through the one at the top, and then I'll go through the 15-0 sitting alongside that Zoli duo. I'm going to go through the bottom hole of the same Zoli duo we were exiting and through the pyramid bead. And here I'm going to tie a couple of knots and end my thread. I'm going to turn over to the back of my beadwork to do that. Okay, I'll end and burn down my thread. And here's our earring. So now I'm going to attach an ear wire. And there you have it. Our earring is now complete. So here's our completed earring. It's really, really pretty. And what you'll do is you'll just follow the steps to make another earring to complete your set. I also will show once again the completed earrings in the Jet AB color. So this one has the Jet AB pyramid beads and Zoli Dual beads. One of the things we can also do with this component is we can just make a pendant instead of an earring. So here I created a pendant and I just used a jump ring to attach it to a chain. Really pretty, really beautiful pair of earrings or pendant, whatever you choose to make. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and this design. Thank you for watching.